Welcome to Parish and Community. My special guest today is parishioner Tim Plunkett. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real well, Angela. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, tell me how you became involved with College Church.
Well, this goes back to my upbringing. I grew up in Baltimore
Hmm.
and have been indoctrinated by the Jesuits.
They do that, yeah.
Oh, my heavens to Betsy, have they ever? Starting in high school, and then I went to Loyola High School, the Jesuit school in Baltimore, and then St. Joe's College in Philadelphia, the Jesuit school in Philadelphia. And then I taught at St. Joe's Prep. That was my first job out of college,
Hmm.
where I taught history and civics. I taught at St. Joe's Prep, which was the Jesuit school there. So think St. Louis Shoe High, but with cheesesteaks as opposed to toasted raviolis.
Got it.
And then eventually wound up on the admissions committee at Boston College. So literally from 1962 when I entered high school until I left BC in 1980, it was all Jesuits all the time. So I have a closet full of Roman collars that I can bring out at some point, for Halloween or something along that line. I was just kind of indoctrinated with that. Then I got to College Church after I retired from Macy's in April of 16, and my wife, who is an attorney, thought it would be a really good idea if I found something to do with myself. I read once where people spend more time worrying about or planning their vacations than they do their retirement, and I would raise my hand and say guilty.
Yeah.
And so somebody said to me, the Jesuits have this middle school down on Washington Boulevard. Why don't you go down there? Maybe they can use you. And much like Michael Corleone in the second Godfather movie, where his wife wants him to get out of the mafia, the Jesuits keep sucking you in. And so I've been at Loyola for 5 years and probably over here at College Church for about 4 years.
Okay.
And one was kind of I had been to College Church before and was really disappointed with the overtly conservative nature of the Catholic Church in the Western suburbs.
Sure.
And I just said, this is not going well. I'm either going to go and become an Episcopalian or another religion, this is not the way I was brought up. I mean, I was brought up with, the Berrigan brothers in Catonsville, Maryland, throwing blood on the selective service records and things of that nature. My dad saying to me, who was also an attorney, saying, there are two systems of justice in America. There's one for white people and there's one for African American people. And so I felt like I needed to find a place as a home. And where else do you get homilies like Dan White's homilies? Come on. I mean, I'm thinking of like having an album, the best of Dan White. Because in the Dan White regularly gets applause for his homily at the 10:30 mass. I mean, he's like a rock star because he is stepping out of the sanctuary onto the floor of College Church, among the pews, and just hammering away at the archdiocese and their reluctance to be transparent in the whole pedophile situation, or talking about the immorality of separating children from their parents with the immigrants, or it was interesting. I remember one homily. It was interesting that the adjectives that they're using about the new immigrants, murderers, rapists, thugs, what have you, were also the same adjectives they used for the Irish when College Church was founded, and that got a huge applause. So I just found, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Father Matt or uh, uh, Father Stewart, what have you. I've just really enjoyed Father White's homilies and his ability to kind of hone in on what's really important here, and what is our obligation as Catholics to live the gospel.
And how has that played out as far as what kind of the roles you've taken on? What kind of ministry have you been
Sure.
a part of?
So to me, it was important that I just not show up on Sundays and drop some money in the plate as it goes by.
Although that is important.
That is important, and I don't know that Father will remember this, but they had a reception for new parishioners once down in the ballroom, and my question to Father White was, is there a limit to how much money we can give on Sundays? And he found that to be quite humorous. So, I because of my work over at Loyola, where it's a middle school, 6 through 8, 60 boys, all under-resourced, all marginalized, and our ability to try to take them and move them into college preparatory programs at the high school level. And so for the vast majority of these kids, they represent the first generation of college in their family. And Eric Clark and the president and Ashley Chapman, they just do a fabulous job in taking these young men and molding them, getting them ready for St. Louis U High or DeSmet or CBC or Chaminade or wherever they may wind up. So that kind of set the ground, the foundation for me to get involved in the anti-racism committee. And then Christine Dragonette is a little like the Jesuits. I mean, she kind of drags you in as well, so now, we're on both race and reconciliation and the anti-racism committee. And then I joined the Parish Life Council. Now that's taken a hit because of the COVID situation. It's hard to, though we had I thought a very successful, Carla did a great job with the blood drive.
Yes.
But then COVID hit, and so our activities have been somewhat limited because of that. But my objective was to come to church and then to contribute in some way, to give back, if you will.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing at this point in my life is, I don't need to be in charge. I just tell me what needs to be done. I can roll my sleeves up. I can fold. For the clothing drive that we did for homeless people. I am really good at folding undershirts.
It's a useful skill.
I can get a job at Hanes or Fruit of the Loom if things go bad here. But
it's good to know.
Yeah, no, it's good to have it at my age. You need a fallback position, So those are the types of things that I've really enjoyed. I mean, it's when I was hiring people for Macy's, my MO was find really smart people, which parenthetically generally were women, and then shut up and get out of the way. Because if you're smart, you'll figure out a way to do the job, and you'll think about ways to do the job that nobody else had ever thought of. Kind of that. And women, I think, inherently have a bias for action. That just sitting around is not a good use of. They don't see that as a good use of their time. And so what I find is that the parish is filled with those types of people that I would have hired for Macy's. Really smart people, well-educated, well-read, passionate about what they're involved in, and really bring to the party real skills that they've accumulated in other aspects of their lives, whether it be work or other volunteer work or school or what have you. So it's really been a wonderful, and now I've got my vaccine shot, so now I'm feeling like, okay, we're back.
Yes.
Now we can go to church again.
Right.
Type of deal.
Well, and the team that you have with the anti-racism team, they've been active with getting this hiding in plain sight presentation
Absolutely.
series going, right?
Yeah, Carl Greiner and his group have done. We've had 2 presentations on Thursday night. We started on February 11th, and then had another one on March 11th. And then on April the 14th, we have a presentation by Brad Strode, who's the executive director for Arch Defenders. And so what we're looking at is their work and the whole concept of restorative justice. Where this idea of just, Williams's book, The New Jim Crow, and how we have more people locked up in prison than any other country in the world,
right?
Is it's just not working. I mean, it just doesn't work. So we need to do something else. So I'm really excited about hearing Blake and hearing what his ideas are and some of the activities that they've been involved in. And we've had already Jeff Schulenberg talking about the inequities in the housing market. And then, of course, Joyce Jones kicked it off back in February, just talking about systemic racism, and has done and they were just wonderful speakers, and really, I read once, you're going to win the argument if you've got better data than anybody else. And these folks came with an incredible amount of data, almost overwhelming how much information they provided for the audience. And I can't imagine anybody came away from those not feeling like, holy cow, this is really interesting stuff.
And I understand it's been well attended as well.
It has been, and
on
at
Zoom.
This point in time, at this point in time, we're drawing people outside of the parish. I mean, I think Carl's idea was in keeping with the anti-racism philosophy of kind of, changing College Church to that anti-racist parish, but it's now extended beyond that. And so, we have people from Kansas City joining us, and lots of other parishes. The College Church, I think, has is developing a really wonderful relationship and reputation for being kind of on the cutting edge of that issue of systemic racism. I think that's really part and parcel of who we are at this point in time as an organization, as a church. So it's really, I found the whole thing really gratifying. It really, kind of lucked out we had brought all the boys from Loyola over on Ash Wednesday. And so nothing more exciting than walking 60 middle schoolers 4 blocks and trying to get them all across Lindell without losing anybody.
You got your buddy.
We've done that.
Congratulations. Well, you touched a little bit on this earlier, mentioning people that inspired you and were kind of in your consciousness, but who are some of the holy men and women who have been inspirations for you in your own faith journey?
The problem of not growing up in St. Louis is that most of the references that people, when they find out that I went to a Jesuit school and what have you, will say, well, did you have Mr. O'Connell in history at SLU High? And no, I didn't go to SLU High, type of a deal.
Right.
So I think what was most interesting to me growing up, when we talk about Catholic families. We are talking about, God rest their souls, my mother and dad, who were the, the most Catholic people that you could imagine. And as a result, our dinner table was populated frequently with Jesuits who were, my mother could do crab cakes like nobody's business. And in Baltimore, crab cakes are what Emo's Pizza is here.
Sure.
And so they were, Buck Sheridan, who taught my dad at Loyola High School, and my uncle was at dinner. Tom Gleason, who was my freshman year high school football coach and then married us. People like Tony Zeitz, when I was teaching at St. Joe's Prep, the faculty came up to him with a proposal to increase salaries. And his response was, "It's not big enough." And who does stuff like that? Nobody. Father Mike Smith, who was the first person who ever, when I was, I don't know, in my first year of teaching, and I was about 4 pages ahead of the boys in the civics class in the book, kind of took a pyramid, and for the first time I ever heard of the concept of the servant leadership. That generally the person at the top of the pyramid is the most important. And Father Mike's theory was, turn it around. The most important people are the students and the faculty.
Right.
And my job is to help you guys. So, and again, blessed to be there with people that were just dedicated and passionate about their work and what have you. So it was impossible not to be influenced by people like that.
Sure.
Brought with them a high intellectual horsepower, and at the same time a wonderful sense of humor and a self-deprecating, where they would make fun of themselves, obviously. So yeah, that was, I guess those were my models as I taught. A plug for myself in my civics class in 1972-73 was a young man by the name of Jim Kinney, and Jim is now the mayor of Philadelphia.
Well, there you are.
So there we are. I mean, there was not,
Clearly, you shaped that young man's destiny.
Yeah, so he was and who knew, when he was 13 years old, where he was going to wind up. So it was. I've been very blessed by being surrounded by really talented people and being able to try to emulate their skill set.
Now, this might have been the Jim Kenny fact, but is there a fun fact about you that your fellow parishioners may not be aware of?
Well, I stole my mother's crab cake recipe.
You stole it.
Well, I mean, stole it is maybe harsh, okay? I replicated it. And so I once read an article in the New York Times, in the magazine section, and they have 1-2 pages on food, which is the first thing I read.
Of course.
Forget the headlines. Go right to the magazine and see what the recipe is.
Absolutely.
And in that particular, and I forget who the author was, she said in the article, if you're a cook, you must be known for one thing. Okay. When you go to your eternal reward, at the funeral, they should be talking about whatever it was, your apple pie,
right.
Your omelets, whatever it was. And so I guess I have served back fin crab meat, crab cakes, I bet you 75 times, and have never gotten tired of hearing things like, "This is the finest crab cake I have ever had in my entire life." Yes, yes.
This is good to know. We need to know the
And Angela, I will get
giftings.
you over to my house if you are not allergic to shellfish.
I am not allergic to shellfish.
Yeah. It is. I love to entertain. I I just think that, you know, having people at your house and generally the dining room table is the least used piece of furniture in somebody's house.
Yeah.
And it is just the opposite at our house. We just had a St. Patrick's Day party for all of our friends who had received both of their vaccine shots.
Okay.
So you have to have a little.
It's an exclusive club.
It's an exclusive club, and then there's a little bit of Easter ham and Plunkett. So we had shirts made up, and because everybody had had their 2 shots, it was 2 shot glasses on the shirt, and then the heading was the 2 shot club. And so everybody got a shirt to take home with them, green, obviously, because everybody had been vaccinated. It was so wonderful to be back.
That's delightful.
And you know, people were not talking about masks and, you know, just kind of looking forward to the future. And hopefully seeing, you know, that we're approaching some degree of normalcy, you know, from that standpoint.
I think that is a fine place to end it. Tim, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
It was terrific talking with you. Good to catch up with you. And thank you for all your help in terms of publicizing our efforts. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to put a link to the upcoming event on the comments of this video when it comes out.
That'd be terrific. Great. Terrific. You have yourself a great afternoon.
You too.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.